So let's see where we're at. We had a test Friday. I haven't graded it. We have started loops, and we will continue with loops. We've had a for loop. We have yet to have a nested loop, a loop inside a loop. We need to do that. We need a while loop. And then we want a different version of repetition, which is timers. So we can get the computer to time something and do it repeatedly, rather than us repeating it in code in however long the computer takes, but have do something once a second, every half a second, or something like that. So those are the remaining topics of looping, of repeating before we're ready for test 2. All right. So I also want to point out after we did our ASCII lab, so this is the recording of that, here is what we made in class. Then I went and was talking to somebody about encrypting, so I made a little program that did some encrypting and discussed that in this YouTube video. So that was not from class, but just based on what we did in class. And now there's some new homework. Part of it's vocab, and then a new loop exercise. And let's see what that is. So the new programming homework is to create this inchworm. So you have a drop down. When the user chooses something in the drop down, then we will create that many number of segments and add it to our inchworm. If they change this number, then we will clear out and start again and use the new number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I counted the head as one of them. And so I did the head separately as number 1, and then I used these things. In the zip, I give you these 2 images. And okay, so that's what you're making. And part of the assignment says that the drop down should be empty. So you should fill the drop down using code. So you're creating image elements and adding them dynamically. And you are also adding the options dynamically. And I have a demo of somewhere, if I go back far enough, somewhere. And then you can also ask me, but I had something about images, and somebody asked me, here's how you, I think, maybe create image element. There was the difference between creating, changing an image source versus adding a new image. Okay, so that is the new homework due in a week. So we have to learn, again, to the list of things we want to learn. We want to learn about nested loops. We want to learn about adding things dynamically in a loop. And we also need to know about while loops and timers. Okay, so what do I have? So we could play with rolling some dice in a loop somehow. Various things you could do. You could say, I want to roll 20 dice or something like that. Let the user choose how many dice you want to roll, or we could just roll the die over and over again and see if it's fair, if the same value comes up a lot of times. We can make and so that's some images that we can use for that, or we can make a multiplication table. Let the user choose. I want to see the 5 times table, and we will sort of generate a table dynamically and sort of show, oh, here's 1 times 5 and 2 times 5, and make a table dynamically. So what do you want to do? He wants to do times table. He wants to do times table, or he's just nodding anyway. Okay. He's not a gambling man. He doesn't want to play with dice. It's a sin or something. I don't know. Okay, so multiplication table. So we're going to let the user choose what multiplication table they want. And then we will then generate that table dynamically. So let's see what we can do. First, I'm going to bring down these files. Download the times table zip. That's just a bunch of images. And they just sort of give me like a header, ones times tables, etc. So I'm going to put those. So I downloaded it. I unzipped it. Right now it's in my downloads. I'm going to move this whole folder, copy, and I'm going to put that over in my 230 folder. And so now I have those times table images in a times table folder in my area. So there's Magritte, and there's times table, and there are those images. Okay. So now I need a new page. I'm going to put, do you want to put the HTML in that folder, or do you want to put it on our normal level? So do you want the images in a subfolder, or do you want the images right next door to the HTML?
We haven't done some.
Doesn't matter what.
We haven't done some folder,
so you want to have it at the same, you want the HTML at the folder level, and then I have to refer to the images in the folder. All right. So I'm making here at our normal level, for me, CSC 230 level, I'm going to make my HTML, I'll call it times table .html, and my exclamation point, or my exclamation point of emit abbreviation in the title will say times table. In the header, say times table. We're going to let the user choose the times table from a drop-down select. Then we're going to show that image that we said, as well as the table. Okay, so first we want the drop-down select that allows them to pick the numbers. So I'll have a label. And what do I want to say? Choose the times table you want. I don't know what to call this. Okay. And then I want to select. So they're going to use a drop-down select to pick them. I'm not going to put the options in. I'm going to put them in dynamically so that we see, so that I know I've shown you how to do that, but I want to give this an ID so I can refer to it as in code. Cell num, I'll call it. And let me make a script area at the bottom of the page. So there's more of the page to come. But in this page, if I have an event, and then the event can call my function. But if I have code that's not in a function, that's just in the script area at the bottom of the page, that code gets called right away. So that's one way I can get code to occur right away. I can also have the body, and the body of the HTML has an onload event. And then so I can say when the body is loaded, then call a function. So do you want to just put code here with outside a function, or do you want to put it inside an onload of the body? You want to do the second one. Okay. So here is our onload function. And I'm going to call a function, I'm going to call it populate. And then I'm going to make the function called by the loading of the page called populate. And I want to put options into my select, and I want to do 1 to 12. So that's the options I'm going to allow the user to choose. The number is 1 to 12. Okay, so I want to do something 12 times, so I set up a for loop 12 times. So we know how to do that. For I like the counter I, so does he. Let I equals 1. Start at 1 this time and go up to and including 12. So less than or so I will continue to loop so long as the counter is less than or equal to 12. And I'm going to go up by 1s. And what am I going to do? I'm going to create an option that doesn't exist. So I'm going to create a new option. I'm going to create an element called, and it's going to create an option element. And then I'm going to add it to the select. I only have to identify the select once. So I'm going to do that outside of my loop. So there's many options, but only one select. So that's that's a thing that we do in loops, is decide what is and is not repeated. And so the picking out of the select, there's just one select. So I do that before the loop. And then I will do the options, which is part of the repeated stuff, inside the loop. So I'm going to make a variable. It's going to correspond to the select. So I'll call it my select. And I'm going to go to the page, document. Let me scroll up a little bit. Get element. The select exists. The options don't exist, but the select does. And what did I call it? Probably cell num. There it is, cell num. Save it. Let me close this Explorer for a second. Okay. So we usually are doing document get element by ID, cell num, and then we're often doing dot value. We're not doing that. One, there are no values to choose because there are no options. And the other thing is that I want to put things into the select. I don't want to get what the user chose from the select. I just want the whole select. I want to do something to the entire select. So later on, when I have stuff in the select, then I will be choosing the value. But for now, I'm just choosing the entire select. Okay, so I'm going through 1 to 12. I want to not access some element I already have, but I want to make a new element I don't have. And so I'm going to say, let my option, I'm just making up a name, and then going to the page, document. And then I'm going to, instead of getting an element, I'm going to create an element. And then we have all those things on a web page are elements. There are H1 headers and divs and all sorts of things. You have to say what kind of element you want to make. We want to make an option. That's what we're making, options. When we make options, there are two main things in our options. They are what the user sees and what we use behind the scenes, the value. And what the user sees, and when we're doing something like this, is referred to the text. In this problem, they're going to be the same, but they don't have to be the same. So I will say my option dot text is going to be my counter I. And my option dot value is also going to be I. If I were doing something like taxes or something, if I were doing like percents for tips or something like that, then I might make the value and divide it by 100 or something like that. These do not have to be the same. In this problem, they're the same. Okay, and then I need to put the option into my select. That's also a repeated thing. So my select, and then it is append child. When one thing is inside another, the thing that's inside the other thing is known as the child. And so the options are children of the select. And so I'm saying, here's the select, and I'm going to add the child or append the child, and the child is the option. So let's save that. And now let's, so the body, what's the recap? My body has an onload that's calling populate. In the script, I have a function populate. I'm going to the page and getting the element with the ID cell num. And I'm just making it a variable called my select. I'm looping from 1 to 12 inclusive. I am making a brand new element that is of the option type. I'm setting its text and value both to I in this problem, and then I'm adding the option to my select. So the text is what a user sees. And the value is what the coder uses behind the scenes. Can't spell scenes. In this case, they happen to be the same, but say again. Go back up this way. So I had the body calling the onload of the body calling this function that's in the script. And in this function, I am grabbing the select. Then we have a for loop. My counter is I. It's starting at 1. I stay in the loop so long as my I is less than or equal to 12. I'm going up by 1s. That's the shorthand I++. I'm creating a new element of the option. I'm setting the text of the option to my counter I. So that's what the user is going to see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 12. I'm going to have the value of my option, also the I. And then I'm going to add this option to the page. I should save. Let me try a live server. And here is my select. So I can select. So in your Inchworm homework, you have to do the same. You have to add a dynamic select put add options. The select is already there, but the options must be added dynamically, and that's how you do it. Stretch or call it? Stretch. Okay, so what do we do next? Now we have a select with stuff in it, and we want to do stuff when the user changes the select. So I'm going to come to my select, and my standard event for my select is an onChange. And then I'm going to make a table for the multiplication. So I'll call it make table. Okay. So now I need a function make table. So in my select, which for me was line 12, I've added an onChange calling a function make table, open close parenthesis. I'm responsible for defining that function in my script. So let me make a separator between the populate function and the make table function. All right. Do you want to have an image that we change the source of, or do you want to just have a container and we'll put an image into it? Second one. You always make my life hard. Okay. So I need a container. I'm going to use a div. Yes. Let's put in a break. I'm going to have, so is this, am I going to use the same div for the image and the table, or am I going to have two separate divs? Same, one div, okay. So div, ID, div, table, display, what do you want? Table, okay. So when they click this button, they might, well, it's not clicking the button, it's choosing the select. There might already be something in the table. There's not right now, but there might be, I might have made a table and then change it and made a new table. If I make a new table, I'll want to clear out the old table. And so it's not separate code for clearing. Often before, we've often had separate code for clearing, but now we're going to have just at the beginning of this function, some code for clearing. And so we know what that looks like. Clear out any old stuff. And what is that? Document, get element by ID, div table, document, get element by ID, div table. Tables have what? innerHTML. And I'm setting that equal to quote, quote. Oops, that's not what I want to do. You want to test that, what do? You want to make sure you're clearing out the table, then you put something into the table. So this time I put in pop instead of poop, okay. So there's my pop, but I change, and I didn't get rid of anything, so something's wrong. What am I looking for? The console. Make table is not defined. I spelled something wrong. The T. Thank you. Let's try her again. Okay. So now I change it and my pop went away. Okay. So. All right. So now if there was anything in there, it's cleared out. Then what are we going to do? We said we're going to add an image. So it is let my image, you're going very dynamical, let my image equal, and how did we do it above? We document create element option, we're going to do document create element image, img. Not get element by ID, it doesn't exist. Document create element, and what are we creating? We're creating an img. Now, what properties of this img do we want to control? The source. So my image dot src equals, now, everybody's making my life difficult today, we're in a folder, so we need the name of the folder / the name of the file, and file depends on what the user chose. So now I need to look in that folder. Here's my times table. That's the name of my folder. And they're times table 1.gif, times table 2.gif. So I have to say times table. That's the name of the folder. Then I need the name of the file, times table, and I need to get the counter, which I don't have. So I'm going to call it, what do we want to call it? Count, factor, number, counter. He wants to call it counter. Now I have to go get counter. And then it was a .gif. Now I have to go and get counter. So let counter equal what? I'm going to the select. That's my standard document. Get element by ID. That did exist. Cell num, I think I called it. And this time I want the value. Last time we accessed this thing, we were getting the entire select. Now we want the number out of the box. That's dot value. Yes, no, maybe I got a yes. Got there, I got a no. All right. And well, let me add it to the page, see if it works, and then we'll talk about it again. I want to add it to the div. So I'm going to make let my div equal document. That's my container. Document, get element by ID. What did I call it? Div table. That's me grabbing my container. Not the contents of my container, not innerHTML, but my entire container. And there's nothing in my container because I cleared it out in line 33. But I'm grabbing the whole container and then I'm going to add the image to it. My div dot appendChild. And what am I adding? I'm adding my image. That's not what I want to do. So there's my 4 times table. All right, let's review. What did we do? The select, the on change of the select. So up here in the HTML section, we had a select. I added an on change event to it. So when the user changes the number, we're calling a function called make table. Capital M, capital T, open close parenthesis. So we are responsible for defining that function down here in the script. So here it is, function make table, open close parenthesis, open close curly. The closed curly is way down there on 40. There might be stuff there from before. Let me change this. Right now, there's stuff in my div. The 4 images in my div. But if I change it, I got rid of the 4 and brought in the 5. So that's what line 33 is there. It clears out any old stuff from the div. What am I doing in line 34? Now line 35. Getting number from user. That's the standard stuff that we know well by now. Let the counter equals document get element by ID, cell num.value. What did the user choose? What am I doing in 36? That's now 37. We are create an image element that did not exist previously. So there was no image on the page. Now we have one. What am I doing in what's now going to be line 39? I made this new image element. I am setting the source property, that the SRC property is the file name, and it happens to be in a folder. To folder / file name dot extension. Now the file names had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in them. And so I needed to concatenate in that counter. So the folder name was times table and then the /. And then the file name was times table again, some number.gif. But the some number was determined by whatever the user chose, which is in the counter variable. So I needed to do some concatenating. What am I doing in 40? I am grabbing the container. Grabbing the div, the container. And then I am finally in what's now going to be 43, adding the image to the div. Are we okay? That was kind of no, but anyway. All right, so you'll rewatch the video, relook at the code when it's posted. All right, let's start to make the table. Do we have a table? No. Do we want to make a table and add stuff to it? No. We could work that way. We could make a table and add stuff to it because a table is a container. But you said you wanted the table in the div, and I've cleared out the div. So even if I put a table in the div, I would have emptied it out. So given what you've said in the past, I have to make a new table. Can I write this program without making a new table? Yes. Okay, but we're not going to because you wanted to go very much from scratch. So what do we have to do? We have to add a table. Table didn't exist, so that's going to be another one of these create. If it doesn't exist, you create it. If it exists, you get it. If it doesn't exist, you create it. Table doesn't exist, we create it. And we are making a table. So now we have a table. what do you put in tables? You put in, tables have rows, and then rows have cells. Okay. So how many rows am I going to put into this table? 1. That's not much of a times table. 12. Okay. So I'm gonna, that's the same loop as up here, right? So I'm going to copy that loop we did before. There's my loop that does something 12 times. Stole it from above. Always steal when you can. So for I equals 1 to 12, going up by ones, we're going to create a new row. So I'm going to say let my row, and it is a table row. So it is a PR. And then I'm going to put the row into the table. Create element, you're right. Thank you. Create element, create element. Okay. And now we're going to add the row to the table. So my table dot append, and I'm going to add my row. And then I need to make a cell that I'm going to put in the row. Chose this program. All right, so let my cell equal document get element by ID TD or TR, but we're going to make it a TD. And I'm going to add the cell to the row. So my row dot appendChild, adding the cell to the row. Not M row, but my row, my row. Let's put something into the cell. So what is, let's try this, my cell dot innerHTML, and let's just put our counter in there. Let's see if that works. And then I make this table. What haven't I done? I created a table. I created a row. I put the row on the table. I created a cell. I put the cell into the row. But I never put the table into the div. So when I'm done down here, I have to put the table into the div. So my div appendChild my table.
Well, it's like plus equal.
Yes, append is like a plus equal. It's adding to what you already have. So let's see if we have a table. Here is our 5 times table, and here are cells within rows. So there's a table, then the table has rows, the rows have cells, and the cells have the numbers in them. Here,
No, the select.
was a lot. Ask me a question.
Right, the 5 times I think.
Yes.
You write it in your mind, so, right?
So I'm going to make another cell. I'm going to do this again. I'm not going to do the let. I'm going to make another cell. I'm going to put just a silly little X in there and append it. So this was the second cell in the row. This was the first cell in the row. So the first cell has the I, the counter. The second one has, I'm just putting a little X in there for now. One times. Now the next cell, I just want to be, what did you call it? Counter?
Yeah.
I just want it to be counter, 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 counter. So I need a third cell. So what's in my third cell? In my third cell, I'm putting counter. There's the count, there's my I, 1, 2, 3. The I is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down to 12. Then I had an X. Then I had what the user chose, which we called counter, which was 8. What's in my fourth cell? What's in my fourth cell is equal.
Yeah.
You can say is result, okay. Format it. In the fourth cell, in the row, can't spell, fourth row, it's going to be an equal. Maybe I'll put some space around my X to make it spread out a little bit. And then what's in my fifth cell?
Counter times I.
Counter times I. So in the fifth cell, we want counter times I. Let's make this, doesn't need to be so big. So here are my 5 times tables. All right. Okay. So what do you want me to show you again?
Write all of these additional elements just in one cell.
we could have put them in one cell. Yeah, we could have put lots of text
Yeah.
in this first cell. We could have said I plus maybe some
Yeah.
space 10 at times. And
Yes,
yeah. Now the advantage, if you want, of the table. So instead of having these multiple cells, is the alignment. That some of these numbers were 1-digit numbers, some of them have to be 2-digit numbers, and you get a nice, because everything is in its own little cell, you get some alignment. You can also give it a border if you want a border around these cells. We could style it and make these bigger. We could make the font size of a TD of a table cell a larger font size if we wanted this to be bigger. If you were making it for child, wanted it to be bigger.
That's that. So what's the CSS target for the value? Is it same as like class or?
So we could have up here a style. If the only TDs on the whole page are these, then you can just style the HTML element. If you want to style an individual thing, you give it an ID and you can style an individual thing based on an ID. If you want to do a class of things, then a set of things you would assign to them to a class.
But there is no target for value. I can target ID with dot, but I
Right.
cannot target value.
No, it's just the contents of something. So I would probably just style a TD and make the font size extra large or something. All right, I'm almost out of time. Anything else you want me to scroll down to the very bottom? I will just, there's one thing I want to do eventually. Maybe you'll ask me another time, but I'm running out of time right now. I would like that when the page starts, for there to be a table. So I want to pretend that the user already chose something from the drop-down select. So there's a way to do that. There's a way to write code that says, pretend the user already chose something. And so I want to show you that, but not now. This was already a lot today. All right. So, but this was, it was a lot, but you will, when you're doing the Inchworm homework, you will be creating image elements in a loop, because that Inchworm had a number of segments. It's probably just in downloads. Where's the?
How do we make them smaller each time?
How do I make them smaller? So let's say I'm in a loop like this, and I have I can set properties of my things.
Yeah.
So let's say I have my row. So I make a row in a column, and let's say I just had some column of the row. My row dot whatever a row has, a style, a border or something like that. I don't know. And then I can make that depend on I. Say if that's a number property, I could say, you know, I times 20. And then I might have to add on a unit. If so this is like completely crazy because a border doesn't have, well, a border thickness has, so if it were border dot width or something, again, this doesn't quite make sense in this context, but I can take my dynamic thing and I'm giving it properties, and I can give it a property that depends somehow on a calculation.
We do it like, we call the image file my image, and this my image that style looks.
You could do it,
or something like that.
with an image, there are two ways to get to the height. You can go directly to height. Image is a very old thing, so it has directly a height, or you can work through the style. So you can say image.height, or you could say image.style.height.
Both is it the same?
You need, if you work with the style, you need to have units. You need to add the p-axis. If you don't have, if you work directly with the old-fashioned thing, you don't need the units.
Is there some way like goes up to height and width at the same time?
Probably sides to
So you could say, let my width equal 200. Then you could come in here and say my width is equal to 1.2 times my width. Then it will get bigger. And then you could use that variable here, my width. So get it started outside of the loop, make it, change it inside the loop, and use it for one of your properties. Stop recording. Ran over now.